Intimacy. Let's have a heart-to-heart chat about intimacy. Let's talk about what it really is, and I'm going to really focus on self-intimacy. And why is it important? Why do we need to have self-intimacy? What are the effects or the consequences of not having self-intimacy? When I say the word intimacy, I'm wondering what words come to mind. What feelings does that evoke for you? What images? Just take a moment and feel into that. And whatever way you connect to that word intimacy. Are you kind of like off put by it immediately? Are you curious by it? Is it something you long for? Or is it something familiar like intimacy? Yeah, like today's Wednesday. It's no big deal. The intimacy that I'm referring to and the way I connect to it, and I've heard this explained this way, is into me I see. Intimacy, into me I see. Now, oftentimes our frame of reference for intimacy is other people or having an intimate relationship with someone in our life. And that is one form of intimacy. But there's also the intimacy within myself. Like, how well do I look into myself and understand? So when I consider intimacy, some of the words that I think of that for me embody intimacy are concepts like attunement, curiosity, connection. Brene Brown defines intimacy as a connection that's built on vulnerability and shared authenticity. And so I think about that in the form of self-intimacy, and it's this ability to understand and accept yourself. It's a process of self-discovery. It's not as if we get self-intimacy and then we're done, because we're always changing. There's always something new unfolding. There's different states of being that we find ourself in. There's different states that we find ourself in. I want to maybe bring in an image of something that we can share familiarity with intimacy, and that is animals. If you think about animals, whether this is your pet or animals that you see out in nature, there's a very keen sense of intimacy with their needs as far as when they need to eat and drink and rest and procreate. They just do these things. There's not a whole lot of reflection or analyzation, like, is this a good time? Should I be doing this? There's just this impulse instinct unfolding that happens with animals within their own needs and whatever's happening within them. Excuse me. Also, there's an intimacy with animals and their environment. Animals can sense when danger is present, whether that's a predator or maybe there's a dangerous weather pattern coming. Animals also sense when seasons are changing and maybe they need to do something different to prepare for what's coming. There's this instinctual intimacy that happens. And so intimacy is something that we can see in our external world to kind of understand, like, what is that like? In my own experience, intimacy within the self is something we're not really taught. And in fact, we're really taught how to connect more with others. And oftentimes we forget to connect to ourselves. So intimacy with ourselves might be an unfamiliar concept for you, maybe not. But why is this important? Like, why do we need to see into ourselves and have this knowledge or self-discovery and inner curiosity? For me, with intimacy, it's really the foundation for all other relationships. The extent to which I can know myself, my needs, my emotions, my physical, kind of what's arising within my physicalness, within my mind, within my creativity, within my spirit. The degree to which I can attune and connect and be familiar with that really allows my relationships to be so much more authentic, because I'm really able to show up as myself. I'm really able to share what is truly happening for me instead of like an idealized or a learned way of showing up. So it's the foundation for really true, authentic relationships. It's also the source of our power. if we really don't know what's happening within us, how can we really have the power to decide if we're okay with that, if we need to do something different, act upon something that we're finding? It really is a source of our power, and especially with our health, um, and with how we're deciding what to eat and how to exercise and what we need to do for our self-care. If we're really not intimate with ourselves, then we're going to outsource that out to someone else to tell us, like, is this the diet I should have? Is this the movement practice? Is this how I should handle this health concern? And that's not to dissuade you from finding experts and people who are specialized in this area, but it's also to know your own body, to know what you need, to really be able to connect to that is a source of power so that you have the discernment to know when you've maybe reached your, whenever you do need help and you need to reach out for an expert, and when you feel that maybe there's nothing wrong with you, maybe this is fine. So it's a source of our power, but it's also a source of our pleasure and our connection to pleasure and how we allow ourselves to receive pleasure. We have to know what we need and what we want and what will feel life enhancing for us. Because not everything feels pleasurable for everyone, whether that's in our sex life, whether that's in our relationship life, whether that's in food and exercise, right? There's just so many different levels of it. The pleasure of knowing, like, yes, this is for me. Yes, this is feeding me and nourishing me on a very deep level that requires intimacy. So yeah, those are some of the reasons why I feel that intimacy is so important, is not only our relationships and our power and our pleasure, but it really is truly the foundation for understanding who we are, what we have to give to this world, what we're out to explore and uncover in our lives. So yeah, so what are the types of intimacy? How would one develop a deeper relationship with intimacy within ourselves if this is something that you're like, I don't know what that is? And so we're gonna do a little exercise together, where I'm gonna kind of take you through some types of intimacy that I've found, and I want you to explore one, what you find, and this is an ability to how we cultivate intimacy, but also I want you to understand your posture towards what you find. And what I mean by that, when I say posture, is maybe like you can say attitude, or like, do you move towards this that you find? Are you repulsed, or do you push away? Are you indifferent? Are you numb to it? Disinterested? I'm just kind of curious what you find within that. So as we move through those different layers, maybe explore what I'm calling your posture towards it, and just be in curiosity about it. Is this anything to fix or judge or get kind of off on a rabbit hole, but just more like, wonder how that was. Wonder why it's this way. That's interesting what I'm finding, because this is really just an exploration. Because remember, with intimacy, it's just a curiosity, a caring, it's an attunement to what is, and we're not necessarily trying to necessarily fix it. We're just wondering and exploring what's there. So we're going to start first with body intimacy. So you can close your eyes for this, or you can keep your eyes open, but I want you to take a moment to connect to your physicality. So your muscles, your bones, how you physically feel right now. And so maybe you're going to scan your body from head to toe for sensation, and it could be painful sensations that you might find. You might find areas of your body that feel really good. You might find areas that feel numb or hard to connect to, and anything in between. So just take a few breaths and connect to your body and see what you find when you connect to your body. Now, some people aren't visuals, so in closing your eyes and kind of going through your body, you may not be able to see that visually, so just connect to sensations. Maybe you need to touch your body to do that. So however you attune to your body, do that. And just breathe and be curious. What's showing up for you in your body? And when you start to notice whatever you notice, the good, the things that feel great, the things that maybe don't feel so great, Notice your posture towards it. Notice if you have judgment towards it or repulsion. Notice if you're interested. Notice if a caring or compassion shows up. Notice if worry shows up. Just kind of paying attention to both the sensation and your disposition towards it. Maybe you want to write this down. Maybe you just want to take note. This is one form of intimacy, is just checking in and knowing what our body's telling us. And being able to pay attention to more than just the loudest sensation. Not that that's not important, but what feels good. This is how sometimes we utilize our body intelligence, is first just knowing what's even showing up in our body, regardless of what we're going to do with that information. Because sometimes we rush to wanting to do something about it without first being curious and exploring. And I could keep going with this body meditation and really ask my body what it needs, how it wants to move. Is there anything that it's craving food-wise, or hydration or rest? Like I can kind of go through things, and we're not going to do that today, but this could be a deeper exploration. Okay, next we're going to go into emotional intimacy. This is how we feel. So take a moment to see if you can discern any emotions that are present. Again, could be emotions that you might deem as positive, like contentment, happiness, gratitude, joy, appreciation. You might notice emotions like sadness or boredom, even disgust. And once again, as you're noticing these emotions, and notice if it's even hard to distinguish if you have any emotions. You might feel really numb emotionally. This might be a type of intimacy you're not used to connecting to. And if that's okay, just notice that. And notice your posture towards it. Do you get forceful? Are you encouraging this? Are there emotions you find that you want to push away? Are there ones that you want to cling to? There's only one emotion that you could track. We're just checking in, attuning, and being curious. Keep breathing as you're doing this and just receiving whatever you find. We're not trying to go on like a really intense hunt where it feels forceful, just an open curiosity. So maybe you want to write down what you found. Maybe you want to pause and go a little further. And again, we could go to deeper layers of this intimacy, but for right now, we're just kind of checking in. The next is a mental intimacy. And so now I want you to pay attention to what's on your mind. Like, what thoughts are in the background and what thoughts are really loud. Allow yourself to be really curious about what's playing in your mind. Could be questions, could be worries, could be stories, could be list making. Just notice what's there. And then notice your posture towards it. Do you wish you weren't thinking? Are you trying to avoid thinking about something? Are you clinging to anything that you're thinking about? Are you forceful with any of it? Do you want to avoid or check out of thoughts? Just patiently being curious. Giving yourself some time and space. So the next one we're going to do, and again, feel free to pause if you need more time, is our creative intimacy. And you might be like, what's that? This is being in touch with our desires. And they can be desires for things that are really simple and desires for things that are maybe complicated or complex or in the future. It could be a desire to go on a vacation. It could be a desire to want to paint something. It could be a desire to want to move. It could be a desire to connect. Just noticing what desires. Notice if you can even connect to this part of you, the part of you that wants something, that's drawing something in, or feels impulsive or instinctively like you want to do something. And again, just, is this something that you can track and attune to? And notice your posture towards it. Sometimes this one can be a more challenging one to connect to, unless you're someone that maybe identifies as a creative person, or someone that perhaps does a practice like this routinely. So again, just being curious if you can track any desires, and noticing how you're labeling the desires. Well, that's not a real desire. That doesn't matter. Just whatever you're feeling compelled towards. Okay, and the last one, again, maybe one that you're not as familiar with, is a spiritual intimacy. And when I say spiritual, that doesn't necessarily mean religious. It's connecting to something that is larger than your personality. So that can be your source of wisdom, your source of intelligence, your source of in some ways, creativity or oneness, love. This could be something that you feel like you're a connection to something higher outside of yourself, like nature, the cosmos, God, goddess. It could also just be your own internal source of like your inner compass. Whatever for you defines this spiritual connection, which is that more than just like me as a role, me as a teacher, a guide, a mother, a sister, a daughter, all those things. And again, noticing your posture towards this, if this is something that feels foreign or unique, if this is something that noticing if you're feeling far away from this or not certain, if you're feeling really close to something, your posture towards it. And we're just noticing what's there when you connect to that part, if you can connect to that part, and what it's like. So now just being aware of which of those intimacy touch points felt easier. Maybe the mental one was really easy, and maybe the emotional one was hard. Maybe some of them felt like you couldn't quite put your hands or arms around it, and maybe some felt really easy. Maybe some gave you a lot of information, some gave you just a little. So noticing which of those feel familiar and unfamiliar, noticing which ones you're drawn to. And again, we're just getting information. And so each of these practices, you could do all of these, you could choose any of these. These are all touch points into your intimacy. And the way we cultivate self-intimacy is really just the same way we cultivate intimacy with another person. And that's that we spend time with them. We can't have self-intimacy if we never spend time alone with ourselves, being curious, attuning, connecting, discovering what's there. So that's really the first kind of way that we can turn inward, is we spend time with ourselves. We can't get to know someone in our life, whether it's a good friend or a partner, and develop a closeness if we don't spend any time together. So the first thing is spend time. Another thing is the intention or the energy or effort. Like, we have to want to do it. If we're willing ourselves to do it, or we're shoulding ourselves to do it, or our heart's really not in it, that's felt. Have you ever spent time with someone who didn't really want to spend time with you and it was really obvious? It doesn't feel good, does it? And I know when this is something foreign for you, like I remember when I first started spending time with myself, like it was uncomfortable. Like I found things I didn't want to find. I felt clumsy with it. I felt like, why do I have to do this? So I get it. I do. I get it. But again, your heart just being like, I do want to know myself, and that intention to, I do feel that this could be something that's helpful for me. Just touching upon anything that's true and authentic in your intention and connecting to that as you do this makes so much difference. Like, intention is huge. So find an intention that can be really true for you. And it may not be that you really love emotional intimacy, but that you do want to know truthfully how you feel, because you feel like it will make you more aware and honest in how you show up. And the third thing is your attention. We just have to keep practicing this. Like, we have to keep paying attention. If we're in relationship to someone and they don't pay any attention to us, how can we be intimate? if they're self-absorbed or they're only absorbed with their work or other things, like we don't develop that bond. So again, just that intention, the time, and paying attention and practicing paying attention and letting our attention get deeper and more expansive, um, and paying attention to the posture that we're bringing, even if the posture seems like maybe it shouldn't be the way it is or it seems off. Returning to that intention of kindness, and practicing that with this. Like, you can't get it wrong, and whatever is, and you can't really change that, but you can pay attention to it and take it all as data and information and celebrate what you do find, even if what you find is like inconvenient or unfamiliar, or maybe you don't even know how to process it. That's okay. Just the paying of attention is an access point. So ways that I do this is through journaling, again, like we did, like closing my eyes, meditating, or just kind of focusing my awareness into different aspects. This is how we start intimacy. And I just invite you to this, invite you to see what happens when you pay attention, what happens when you notice your posture, and can we collectively bring forth a kind posture, the same posture you'd bring to someone that you cared about. If you notice that the person you're with is having a bad day or they're off, like, we generally can bring pretty much compassionate presence to that. And oftentimes when we find the same thing in ourselves, we're not so kind. So I like to bring what I would bring to others to myself in this, and that takes practice. It takes intention. But I invite you to this practice, and I hope that this time together has been helpful in cultivating your own understanding of what intimacy is, and maybe coming into agreement with what you're willing to do to get to know yourself, and then you exploring and reaping what's there when you do spend time, and how does this serve you and your health and vitality and your authentic expression of who you are in the world. Thank you for watching. I'd love to hear your questions. You can comment below and join me for some additional practices on my YouTube channel and my Patreon channel for deeper aspects of each of these types of intimacy, so that we all can really know who we are. So thanks for listening and watching, and may we all peer into ourselves and see who we are with greater curiosity, compassion, and acceptance. Take care, friends.